It's a gospel of deism. It's a deist gospel. Worship the Creator. Nothing in there about Jesus, nothing in there about the blood, nothing in there about eternal security, nothing in there about nothing that you and I, as New Testament born again Christians, know, understand, and appreciate as our salvation experience. But it doesn't stop there. People that don't believe that there's going to be a rapture of the church, they really, really, really have to wrestle, seriously wrestle with the scripture and twist and try to force a square peg into a square hole, or a round peg into a square hole. And a lot of ways that they do this is if they read something in especially the King James Bible, but any English version that doesn't go along with what they already believe, they'll go to the Greek and they have to, oh, this word can be translated this. And then they can just invent their own belief system. On a side note, most people that have wonky, weird doctrines, they have to use some kind of Greek mumbo jumbo in order to authenticate what they're believing. A true Bible believing New Testament Christian believes that the Word of God in English, that God preserved His Word, we have it. I don't need to understand or know Greek. Now, I did study Greek for 3 years. I do have a Nestle's Greek New Testament. I also have a Texas Receptus New Testament. But when I want to study the Bible, I study a King James authorized version. Now,
I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Racha, Kodash. Double honor and salutations to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Much respect to you brothers out on the highways and byways pushing this truth with fear and sincerity, and shalom to the hopeful elect. Shabbat Chalakar of GMS Northwest. Come back at you with a quick video. And I came across this video. I was, scrolling on YouTube. It's always, right to break this, rightly dividing the word of truth, as it says in the scriptures, because these bonehead Christians out here thinking they're going to get raptured away before before all the destruction comes. And then the Lord is going to come back and, get the rest of the ones that didn't believe, but now they believe. And, and the scriptures are clear. You can cut that with multiple scriptures. But, basically he was going into, if you didn't believe in the rapture, then you're a bonehead, And yes, that's what there will be a taking up of the elect of the nation of Israel. But it ain't gonna be in this belief that the church, these Christian churches teaches. These Christians, they're complete wacky tacky boneheads, man. They off their rockers. You got, as a matter of fact, a brother put on the chat last night. It's this Christian talking about busting a nut, and because the Lord gave you that power to, and calling on Him while you're doing it, and all of this, madness, man, just straight madness. You can't even listen to it because it's just, it irks you, man. It irks you. But I Google search, AI overview. What is the rapture belief? The rapture is a belief primarily held by some Christians that before a period of tribulation on earth, all true believers, both living and dead, will be caught up to meet Yahushua in the air. It says Jesus there, but we know the rightful name of the only begotten Son is Yahushua HaMashiach. He says He delivers the anointed, because that word Jesus ain't nothing but an earth pig, earth pig. And then Christ is a Greek title. When you jump in a time machine and go back, they spoke Hebrew, Latin, and Greek. So the names that you would have heard, when our Lord was walking the earth, you would have heard Jesus Christos, you would have heard Jesus, and you would have heard Yahushua. Now, going to the scriptures, what's that, John, I think, 19, Come on. John 19 and 20, just to prove that point. Let's start at 19 and 19. And Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross and the writing was Yahushua of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. It says, this title then read many of the Jews, for the place where Yahushua was crucified was nigh to the city, and it was written in Hebrew, in Greek, and Latin. So I just went over his Hebrew name was Yahushua. His Greek title was Jesus Christos, and his Latin name was Jesus, you know. So right then and there, that's a cut. You know, the name of the Son is not Jesus. Like I said, that word breaks down into earth pig. And then when you even go into the name, I believe it goes into the origins of it. See?
Strong's G 2424. Jesus. Jesus.
Jesus. So what are these people talking about, you know? If it was transferred from Greek, how did it goes into Jesus? You know, letter J wasn't invented until 1524 by John Giorgio Trissino. You know, he invented that letter J. It's an extension from the letter I. But if you go into the Hebrew origins, right? Say Yahushua, you know, but if we read it, you know, Yahweh Sha'ah, even from the root origins, Yahweh, Sha'ah, Yahsha'ah, Yahweh Sha'ah. It says Yahweh Sha'ah, but we know it's Yahweh Shah because the way you pronounce it. It might say it that way, but the way you pronounce it. You know, with the Hebrew language, it's a remembrance of the how you pronounce words. You know, you got to remember how to pronounce words because some words will get taken off, or some letters will get taken off, and some letters, you know, won't. You know, you don't need. It's an extra, you know, so to speak. But going back to John 19 and 20, they spoke Hebrew, Latin, and Greek. Now, like I was reading this, the rapture is a belief primarily held by some Christians that before a period of tribulation on earth, all true believers, both living and dead, will be caught up to meet Yahushua in the air and be taken to heaven. This event is believed to be separate from the second coming. So here it is. This event is believed to be separate from the second coming, which is when Yahushua returns to earth to establish his kingdom. The concept of the rapture is not explicitly mentioned in the Bible and is based on interpretations of certain scriptures, particularly 1 Thessalonians 4 and 13 through 18. You know, we can just go there real quick and break it down the right way. 13. 1 Thessalonians 4 and 13, but I will not have you to be ignorant. And this is the letter to the Israelites in Thessaloniki. You know, the Israelites that was in Thessaloniki, Paul letters to the Israelites that are among the Thessalonians. Was it Thessaloniki, Greece? But I have you to be but I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that ye sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. You know, because we have brothers, you know, believers in this thing that don't, you know, transition to the spiritual realm. And we believe that we're gonna see them again, you know, Abaratazah, you know. And they're going to be raised up first, you know, the ones that died in this faith, the ones that was doing the work. It says because the apostles, they're for teachers, you know, they don't passed on and went on to the spiritual realm, you know. For if we believe that Yahushua died and rose again, even so them that which sleep in Yahushua will power bring with him. So that sleep, you know, that sleep is just is just death, you know. The body's going back into the ground, the spirit going back to the Father of spirits. Verse 15, it says, for this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet of the Most High. And the dead in Hamashiach shall rise first. So, like I said, the ones that don't die in this faith, that's part of the elect, may I add, will be risen first. Then which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds, in the chariots, to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore comfort one another with these words. Yeah, and we comfort each other because we talk about this daily, or we talk about this every so often. We get the chance to. If the Spirit hops on us to bring it out, we bring it out, and we go into the prophecies of what's going to happen. Now, they're saying that there's going to be a secret gathering up, and then the Lord is going to come back for the second coming, and then establish his kingdom, and then they're going to, the ones that believe and all of this stuff, which they got it backwards. They got it wrong. If we go to, let me go to, I want to go to Matthew 24, but I want to go to Isaiah 26 real quick. Isaiah 26 and verse 20. Yeah, Isaiah 26 and 20, it says, "Come, my people, enter into thy chambers, and shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself as it were for a little moment until the indignation pass over." So they're saying there's going to be a pre-tribulation, and then they get zooped up, and then that's when the destruction starts to happen. But the scriptures are clear on come my people into thy chambers. That's talking about those chariots. Shut the doors. What are we shutting the doors? Because remember, there's going to be a sea of looking glass. When that destruction is happening, you're going to be looking at it. It says, shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself as it were for a little moment until the indignation be passed over, because we're going to be watching this, as it happens, as those earthquakes going off, as those missiles are hitting, it says the tribes will be afraid. I believe that's in Revelation 6. We can get that real quick next, Lord will. It says, "For behold, the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, cometh out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. The earth also shall disclose her blood, and shall no more cover her slain." So the Lord is going to come in and punish, the wicked, 2/3 of our people and these heathens, and also the wicked, Esau's Edom kingdom. Matthew 24. Matthew 24 goes into that tribulation, right? Matthew 24 and 29. Matthew 24 and 29, it says, "Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon not give her light." So immediately after the tribulation. And here they're saying before a period of tribulation on earth, all true believers, both living and dead, will be caught up to meet Yahushua in the air and taken to heaven. So they're not going according to the scriptures. They're adding to the scriptures. And we know if you add to the scriptures, the plays are going to be added to you. If you take away from the scriptures, the plays are going to be added to you. Matthew 24 and 29 says, "Immediately after the tribulation," not before it, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. It says, "And then shall the appear of the Son of Man," and then the Son of Man is going to be coming, right? "And then shall appear the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." It says, "And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heaven to the others, to the other. So, yeah, because the elect is scattered throughout the four corners of the globe. You know, Deuteronomy 28 tells you that our people are everywhere. You know, they're everywhere. They're going to look like every nation that's out here. You know, but the bulk of the main deliverance is going to come out of here, or Babylon, because the Lord is going to save the elect, right? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Isaiah 11. Hold on, let me see something. Oh yeah, Isaiah 11:11. It shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time. What was the first time? It's people been in Egypt. Our people in Egypt, to cover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Sinir, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. And it shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel. Whose outcasts? Those four corners, those four winds, and gather together his dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. So what are these Christians are talking about? You know, the envy also of Ephraim, the northern kingdom, shall not depart, and the adversaries of Judah, the southern kingdom, shall not be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim, but they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines towards the west. They shall spoil them from the east together. They shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. Yes, because all of these heathens are going to be under our control when the Lord comes back. When the Lord comes back and busts open those clouds. Now, let me get this real quick because I'm pressed for time right now. I got to get ready for camp. Revelation 6. Hold on. I'm going into that earthquake. Okay, Revelation 6:12, and I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. Remember, because like it says in Matthew the 24th chapter, you know, that immediately after the days of tribulation, this is when these missiles are falling. Remember, Revelation 9, but 200 million missiles should fall from the sky. It says the stars of heaven fell upon the earth. There you go. Even as a fig tree casts her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll. What is that scroll? It's that nuclear mushroom cloud. When it rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their place, because these missiles are going to move this landmass out of its place. You're not going to recognize this place. And the kings of the earth, and the great man, and the rich man, and the chief captains, and the mighty man, and every bondman, and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, fall upon us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. Because you're going to have people that go into their bunkers. You're going to have people that go underwater, people that try to be in space, you know, which they're going to get zapped out of here anyway. You know, because there's going to be that Michael and the Archangel Michael, Yahweh Shai, Archangel Michael, and there's going to be a war in heaven. You know, they was durst afraid, but they still fought. You know, so there's going to be a war in heaven. Those people that's up there and those, I'm just flying to space and try to orbit my way out of this. And no, you're going to get zapped out of the sky. You know. Verse 17, for that great day of his wrath is come. Who shall be able to stand it? You know, who should be able to survive it? Only the elect of the nation of Israel, the Lord's elect. You know, that's going to get picked up from the four corners of the globe immediately after the tribulation, after all of these missiles fall. You know, let me see something. Gave glory. Yep, there we go. Revelation 11:11. After 3 days and a half, the Spirit of the spirit of life from the Most High entered into them, and they stood on their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. Yeah, that's 3 days and a half. The elect waking up. Because he going to the two prophets. Well, people on the comment board going to the two prophets, which they don't know that's the northern and the southern kingdom. The elect them, those two prophets torment to them that dwell upon earth. Yeah, because this word, this truth, we speaking into existence. In the 3 days and a half, spirit of life from the Most High entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them, and they heard a great voice from heaven saying, "Come unto them, come up hither." Remember, Isaiah 26. And they ascended up into heaven, and a cloud and their enemies beheld them. At the same hour, there was a great earthquake in the 10th part of the city, those 10 FEMA zones. And in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were frightened and gave glory to the God of heaven. The second woe is past, behold, the third woe come quickly. Yeah, because that's the Armageddon. When Armageddon, the world's third war, this is all that's going to take place. The mandatory implementation of the MOTB, the World War III, all of this taking place, and now Lord coming back to save the elect of the nation of Israel out of this. In the midst of all of that, ain't gonna be no, oh, you're gonna be hidden here, and it's gonna be a secret pulled up, and then there's gonna be, some secret rapture, and then the Lord is gonna come back. So. Like I said, I was pressed for time. I just wanted to it's more scriptures to go into. It can get deep into this. Might do a part 2, Lord will, but we'll see. I hope you was edified. Hope you got something out of the show.